why I wanted to be in business. And I said to myself, sitting there at that desk, I have no idea how I'm going to do this in my 6th business, but I'm going to figure out, I am not going to be a hostage to my next business. I'm going to own that business. It's not going to own me. And I am going to require that that business give me back both time and money, not just money. Because we've always thought as the owner's trap, how do you make more money? You spend more time at work. That's part of the owner's trap. What if you figured out that you could actually make more money in less time? So I had no idea how to do it, Lisa. I only knew where I wanted to end up. And that's why I say you don't need to know how, you need to know where you want to end up, and you'll figure out how along the way.
Everyone has a sock drawer where we hide the stuff we don't want to face. Today, we're opening yours. I'm Lisa Begley, and this is the Sock Drawer Podcast. If your life feels messy, stuck, or outgrown, good. That's where we begin. I have a question. What if the biggest threat to your business, it's not the economy, your competitors, or even technology, but it's the way you think about work itself? Many founders believe they are leading when in reality, they have simply built a company that cannot function without them. And today's guest has spent decades helping business owners escape that trap and build companies that actually create freedom instead of consuming it. Today, I'm joined by Chuck Blakeman. Chuck is a serial entrepreneur who has built 13 businesses across 10 industries on 4 continents. He is the founder of the Crankset Group and the 3 to 4, where he mentors business leaders on how to grow profitable companies that no longer depend on the founder to actually survive. He is also the author of the award-winning book, Making Money is Killing Your Business, and his work has appeared in Entrepreneur Magazine, Inc., Harvard Business Journal, and Success. Chuck has advised organizations ranging from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies, including Microsoft, Apple, Oracle, and Eli Lilly. Wow. Chuck, we are so privileged to have you here today.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Lisa. And thanks for reading my obituary.
I knew you were going to say that. Well, listen, I just want to dive right in because right off the bat, you've built 13 businesses in 10 different industries across 4 continents, which is an incredible track record, as you know, being so involved in business. When you look back at your early career, what were some of the lessons about businesses and leadership that shaped the way you build companies today? Like, give me the background.
Wow, yeah, so many things. I think the first thing I learned was that I was dispensable. I had to learn that there were other people who were smarter than I am and who could do it better than I could, whatever it is. And invariably, that's true. It's an old Henry Ford saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Well, if you think other people can't, you're right. And so the idea that came from a paper written in 1908 and revised in 1911 by Frederick Winslow Taylor called Scientific Management. So, he's kind of loading the dice there saying, what I'm doing here is really scientific. It actually wasn't. But he, in that paper, he made 2 fatal assumptions about people that took me a long time to learn to get over, because most of modern management has been founded on his stuff. People don't know who he is, but let me rock your boat a little bit. You might know who Peter Drucker is. He was kind of the big wig in management in the late 1990s. And Peter Drucker said, Frederick Winslow Taylor had more impact on the 20th century than Freud, Darwin, and Marx. Wow. So who is this guy who wrote this paper? Well, he founded what we assume to be the operating structure, the operating system for modern business, top-down, bottom-up management, which is, we inherited it from slavery, and it came through military, and it came through the Middle Ages and serfdom and through the mercantiles and all that stuff, and it ended up in business. It's a terrible operating system, but I bought off in it, and he helped affirm it with his paper when he made these 2 fatal assumptions. Most people are stupid, and most people are lazy. And so if you believe those things, how do you fix stupid and lazy? Well, the only way to do that is to find the very rare, smart, and motivated ones and lord them over the stupid and lazy ones. And thus, management was born. And Scott Adams made millions of dollars doing Dilbert based on that whole concept that that the manager is smart and everybody else is stupid. When in fact, Dilbert says, well, basically the manager was the one who needed the help and everybody else knew what to do. So that was that took me 5 or 6 businesses to figure out, people aren't actually stupid and lazy, and I'm not actually the smart and motivated one. We're all in the boat together, and they will be what I make of them. I had a really rocky childhood. I graduated at the bottom of my class. I was ADHD, dyslexic, left-handed, right brain. They thought I should be a tinsmith. They didn't even want me to graduate from high school. And in that context, I learned from people expecting very little of me. I expected very little of myself.
Yeah.
And so the principle is people will raise themselves to your lowest expectation of them. What do you expect of people? That's what you're going to get. And so that was my lesson number one. And then it evolved into, if people are not stupid and lazy, then where does this whole management thing fit in? And that blew up my world.
And so let's go back even a little further. You also started your career in the U.S. Army and later moved into leadership roles with the Navigators. Can you tell me a little bit about the Navigators and becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, I went into the Army because I was pretty sure no one else would hire me.
Okay.
Because
of what you were thinking before.
Well, because I barely got out of high school.
Yeah.
I was literally at the bottom of my class in high school. They thought I was stupid and lazy, and I lived down to that. And so I went into the Army. While I was in the Army, I kind of mistakenly started a couple of little businessy things, and that seemed interesting to me. And then I got involved with this leadership development thing called the Navigators, which is worldwide now, and was very much involved with that while I was in the Army. And when I got out of the Army, that was one of the first things I worked with, was helping people develop leadership in a spiritual sense through the Navigators. And while I was doing that, I started another small business, and it just sort of went from there. I found my footing and realized, hey, I actually have something to contribute to the world around me. I am not stupid and I'm not lazy, and I got something here. Maybe this business thing would work for me. So that took off, and like you said, off we went. Over time, it became, well, I actually took my life question. I have a vision for my life, which is live well by doing good. But my life question, I didn't know what an entrepreneur was when I read this book by this guy, and he asked the question, why do what others can and will do when there's so much to be done that others can't or won't do? Why do this if the people have that covered? Why do that when there's something over here that people don't have covered? And I lit up. I said, that's me. That fits my makeup, who I am and how I see myself in the world around me. Yeah. That's when I learned the difference between an entrepreneur and a business person. Bill Gates is a business person. Steve Jobs was an entrepreneur. What's the difference? A business person, they both are super valuable and we should have more business people than entrepreneurs. I would say that the world would really be a messy place with too many entrepreneurs. We need business people. And business people find something, they fall in love with it, and they get better and better, and they stick to it, and they do it their whole lives, and they just get better at it. Yeah. And Steve Jobs stayed with one thing his entire life. Or I'm sorry, Bill Gates did. Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, those people are all over the place. And most of the time, someone's an entrepreneur because they're actually starting to do something that they really don't know much about. Yeah. And that was me.
Would you coin an entrepreneur kind of, I've heard this term and people call it this, like you have shiny object syndrome, right? Like you're just like here and there, but yet so many successful entrepreneurs, right? So if we could find a good balance, I feel like every day recently, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is like, it just seems like the last few years, entrepreneur is almost like a trendy word. And yeah, right. It's just become.
And the last 20 years, really, 20 plus years, really since the angel investor or the investor, the venture capitalist, the vulture capitalist became a thing. Yeah. There's somehow, I get it. We're addicted to big, we're addicted to complicated, and we're addicted to the rare. Those things make us fall in love with what we think the venture capitalist represents, and all that thing that's out there where you have this idea and you're going to raise $20 million or $200 million, and it's going to be a $40 billion company, and you're going to be the richest man on earth. And it's really exotic and romantic, and it gets all the hooks that would make for a great movie. and it is about as rare as a water buffalo in Ohio. I mean, here's the statistics on business, on people who actually set out to build a big business, to be an entrepreneur in that sense, because that's what entrepreneur has become. It's entrepreneur is this guy who wants to go out and make millions of dollars,
Yeah.
and he's more committed to the money than he is to the passion or to the transformation. 100. Here's how many businesses ever have more than 500 employees. 0.06%
Wow. No kidding.
99.4% of all businesses, 99.94% of all businesses never have more than 500 employees ever at any time. Venture capital businesses fail at an astronomical rate compared to plumbers, electricians, carpet layers, fill in the blank, business owners, exponentially higher rate. So it sounds great, but it comes with a lot of snares, and you better have a net.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
entrepreneur is definitely very different than business owner, and it has become this romanticized thing. For me, the difference is simply this: an entrepreneur is willing to go do willing. I don't even like that word. He or she just has a tendency to go do things they don't know a lot about.
Yeah.
And they do multiple businesses. That's the real key. They do multiple businesses in multiple industries. They may learn about it before they do it, but they'll be in 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 or 100 different industries in their lifetime, like Richard Branson, who owns 460 some companies. And I'm sure he doesn't know much about 450 of them.
What?
That's the entrepreneurial identity, is how many different kinds of professions have you been in? Not how many plumbing businesses, but how many different kinds of businesses. And if you got 3 or 4, yeah, you're an entrepreneur. If you got one, God bless you, because you're the people who make the world stable. You're going to make plumbing actually better. And I'm going to do plumbing for about 3 minutes, wreck it, and then go do something else.
Isn't that, I think you just described me. You actually said that, like I always say this, my husband, stable, 40 years in the same career. Stable,
yeah, we marry our
not
opposites.
stable. I'm not the stable one. Stable, not stable.
Yeah, we marry our opposites. My wife is the same. She's the stable one. She's the one who brings me back to earth.
Yep. Thank goodness we have them, right?
That's
so
right.
Let me ask you this, because I noticed you know the way you approach. Was there a moment when you realized what the traditional model of running a business was fundamentally broken, or what you consider not working?
Well, no. And there was a moment at which I had this, what I call a blinding flash of the obvious. I stole that from a guy 20 years ago. And so I'll go to the question, was there a moment where I learned that the operating system was broken? I actually did not. And here's why.
Okay.
Because I'm ADHD, left-handed, right-brained, and dyslexic, I don't have a lifelong habit of studying what other people do before I do something. That would be boring. I'd have to sit and actually, be disciplined. And so there's an upside and a downside to that. The downside is you could save yourself a lot of pain if you studied what other people did before you struck out to do it. The upside to not studying that is that you very often will end up in a place where nobody would have dreamed of. Because you don't have their constraints. You didn't go through, well, here's 100 things that are going to go wrong when you just go for the thing. And so I went to music school, for crying out loud. And then I went into the Army from music school. I played in the Army band because, again, I was pretty sure nobody would hire me. And I didn't have anything I could offer. And as I got into this, I realized that I had something to offer as an entrepreneur. And I just started doing business, but I did it from a left-handed, right-brained world. I didn't have the logical, linear constraints of being an MBA. And so every business I started, I simply wanted things to get done. And I know that sounds like another blinding flash of the obvious, but I would guarantee you in most businesses, that is not the objective. The objective is not to get things done. The objective is to create processes and products and raise money and do colors and make sure everybody has a right title. And there's so many things we do that just don't help, especially up front. So I just wanted to get things done. And in doing that, I apparently created alternate operating systems that I didn't know had not existed because, again, I hadn't studied other people's stuff. Yeah. And when I got far enough along and got enough success, I had friends who would say, the way you run your business is so different. You don't have managers. You have 105 people and there's no titles, no managers, no titles. And you grew from, 1.5 million to 9 million in three years. How'd you? And so I began teaching other people to do that. Well, here's what I just learned by doing it on the ground. And then I decided, I got a little scared and said, what if I'm teaching people to do something stupid? So then I studied, what had happened in the world around me, and realized, oh, yeah, there is this thing called the industrial age factory system top-down model that Google and 98% of companies today still use the factory system operating model, which is a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, tell me more. So
So
like that's like the leadership down kind of a thing? Yeah.
what is a pyramid scheme? I ask anybody this and they'll tell you a pyramid scheme is something where the people at the top use the people at the bottom for the benefit of the people at the top. Welcome to corporate America, except somehow it's still legal there. It's not for the Tupperware lady. We've taken that away from her, but we'll still let fill in the blank corporation run a pyramid scheme. And so I realized, wow, this thing, and where did it come from? The first mention of the word manager that we can find in language is in Hammurabi's code, which is about 5,000 years ago, and it's related to slaves. And it basically says if you have stupid and lazy people who don't want to work, you got to get somebody with a whip to lord over them and force them to be productive. And that's our first scrap with management.
Mm.
Frederick Winslow Taylor just put that in cement in 1911. So I didn't know that was a thing, that you actually needed managers to make people productive. It turns out you don't.
You don't. Yeah.
So Lisa, here's an interesting thing. You can Google this. Anybody can Google this. Show me studies that show that a manager, and I'm talking about a very localized manager of 8 or 10 people, makes those 8 or 10 people more productive. Show me one study that proves that is actually the case. Because isn't that the whole foundation of management? It's like the slaves, stupid and lazy. I'm going to put a man with a whip or a woman with a whip over top of you, and you'll be productive. I couldn't find a single study when I wrote my third book on rehumanizing the workplace by giving everybody their brain back. That's the title. I couldn't find a single study that even actually studied whether managers make people more productive at the very hyper local level. We can see leadership studies that clearly show leadership makes people more productive. That's a very different thing than management. That set me on this whole path of what is management? What is leadership? And realizing that we had screwed this whole thing up. I'm now a coach and a business advisor. I work with other smaller business owners. I don't want to work with the Googles and those people. I won't get anything done. I work with people who actually own their own business.
Yeah.
At any level. And because I want to work with the founder, because then you can get something done. And I found in working with these people and in studying this stuff that management and leadership have nothing in common. And we only need managing for stuff. We need leading for people, management for stuff. So the mantra is lead people, manage stuff. My computer is actually stupid and lazy. I can prove that because I can leave it outside in the rain and it will rust and dust and it won't move and it won't do anything. It's just stupid and lazy. All stuff, processes, trucks, anything that's not human, that's not living is stupid and lazy, and it requires management. And somehow we got stuck in there in the industrial age, stupid and lazy, just like the machine. And so we got managed as well. People need to be led. What is the difference? It's a huge difference. Yeah. I've had some big fights. I had a Twitter war with Tom, what's his name? Who wrote Good to Great in the 90s?
Tom Collins.
Yeah, I wanted to say Tom Collins, but isn't that a drink?
Yes, it is.
You don't think that's
a little bit of gin.
But it doesn't matter. I wrote an article for Inc. magazine.
Jim Collins.
Okay, better, much better. Actually, I like the Tom Collins. I like the Tom Collins better. Now that I've met both.
Michael Gerber, I have them all.
So this guy tweeted me after I wrote an article for Inc. magazine that said, managers are the dumbest thing ever. We shouldn't have any. Nobody should ever have them. And here's why. And he tweeted me and he said, if there's ever, I still have the tweet, if there's ever an airplane, this was like 10 years ago, maybe longer. If there's ever an airplane built without managers, please make sure it's labeled, I'm not getting on it. That was his first tweet. Now, this is a guy who's absolutely data driven in every other way in his life. We had almost a year-long Twitter war that was basically me throwing data at him and him responding emotionally. So I would say data, data, data. Here's why you don't need managers. Here's the research. I can show you reports that actually show when you take the manager away from the hyperlocal team, I can show you studies where they actually do get more productive. So I've got research on my, so data, data, data going at him and coming back emotional.
Responses.
Yeah. And it's like, well, that can't work. Well, that's really hard. Well, that just sounds awful. And somebody actually said, you guys should have a debate. And I said, well, it wouldn't be much of a debate because here's how it would go. Chuck would say data, data, data. And this guy would say emotion, emotion, emotion. And it would be boring. And he blocked me.
Yeah.
And so we haven't talked since. But I'm in good company. John Cotter, who is a former, I think some kind of fancy emeritus business guy at Harvard. He said leadership and management have nothing in common, and I am in his camp. And they don't. They have nothing in common, and they shouldn't even be applied to the same things.
Yeah.
Let alone that they don't have anything in common. So what's the difference? And this was like 20 years in about 30 seconds here. Here it is. So here's leadership. Leadership is any act that improves the life, situation, or performance of another individual. That is leadership. A guy pushing a broom in the warehouse can teach the other guy that if you push a broom in a circle, you will actually get done faster than if you push it in straight lines. That's leadership. He has improved the life, situation, or performance of another individual. Somebody in the break room is crying and somebody else comes in and puts their arm around them and plays the mentor, and they improve their life or their situation. That's leadership. We have this guy in the white horse out front thing about leadership, and visionary leadership is only one of the various types of leadership. So any act that improves the life, situation, or performance of another individual, if that's a working definition, I've passed that by a lot of people saying, wow, yeah, that really fits. I can make that work. If that's a working definition of leadership, then here's the really radical assumption from that. Everyone is a leader. Some people are visionary leaders. Some people are tactical leaders. Some people are creative. Some people are very maintenance oriented. Some people are stable leaders. Everybody has something to contribute to the life, situation, performance of another individual. And that we are all leaders.
And do you think there's many people out there who just don't know that yet? They just haven't found that part of them yet.
Lisa, you're right, because I have this fun little exercise we do when I go into companies. I'll get a team of 10 or 15 people together, give them all, like, if there's 10 people, I'll give them 9 sticky notes each. And they write the names of the other 9 people down on the top of each sticky note. And then I show them the 4 different kinds of leadership. And I ask them, write down when you see Sally's name, look up at the 4 ways that people lead and ask yourself, how does Sally lead me? And write that down for Sally. And do that for all 9 people. And then they give all the cards, all the little sticky notes. And I end up with the 9 with my name on it and read them out loud. Fred says, I lead him this way. Sally says, I lead her this way. And you better have tissue paper because people have no idea. I had no idea I had that impact on your life. And then you have them put those 9 sticky notes wherever their Dilbert cube is. Hopefully they don't have one, but wherever they work, so that they can continue to see how they lead and continue to get better at it. Most people have no idea, Lisa, that they are leaders. Because we all, again, it's like entrepreneur. We have this view of leader like we have entrepreneur. There's this one special, really rare cat that we all emulate and we all wish we could be, and none of us can because it's just so scarce.
Right.
The most common forms of leadership are things what I talked about. Relationships.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. Now tell me, if you would, you talk about the founder trap and owner dependence. Like talk to me about that. How does that fit into?
Yeah. So good question.
You have.
Thank you. That brings my ADHD all the way around to the second part of when you asked me, was there a time that you figured this out? There wasn't a time when I figured out the operating system was broken because I never actually looked at it. And then I found out afterwards. Yeah. But there was a time where I found that owner's trap. And the owner's trap came to me in my 5th business. Mm-hmm. I built 4 other businesses, and I'm a slow learner. I think it's why I've had to build at least 13. Stay tuned. There's more to come. In my 5th business, After about 3 years, we were sitting there. We built it from like 1 million to 9+ million on a $20 million run rate. And the other partners wanted to sell it. I didn't, but we were selling. And I'm sitting there at my desk after 3 years. We'd grown from 3 people to 110 or 120 or whatever it was. And I was still working 55 to 60 hours a week. And I remember sitting there saying, okay, I'm going to do this again. How in God's name did I end up here 3 years later? We somehow added 107 more people and I'm still working 60 hours a week, 50 hours a week. How in the world did that happen? And I didn't have an answer for it, but I did have a place I wanted to go. This is an important business owner principle. You don't need to know how. How is the most asked, least helpful question in business. You need to know why, where, when, who. But so I need to know what it looked like, where I was going, why I wanted to be in business. And I said to myself, sitting there at that desk, I have no idea how I'm going to do this in my 6th business. But I'm going to figure out, I'm not going to be a hostage to my next business. I'm going to own that business. It's not going to own me. And I'm going to require that business give me back both time and money, not just money. Because we've always thought, as the owner's trap, how do you make more money? You spend more time at work. That's part of the owner's trap.
Right.
What if you figured out that you could actually make more money in less time? So I had no idea how to do it, Lisa. I only knew where I wanted to end up. And that's why I say you don't need to know how, you need to know where you want to end up, and you'll figure out how.
Okay, so with that said, thank you for that. And I appreciate knowing that. So now what are the first signs? Now that you're, here, what are the first signs that a company is becoming dangerously dependent on their founder? Like, thinking back to that time, you didn't really notice it then, but what do you see now when you're coaching these companies?
So this is another, I have like 8 or 10 different things that divide leadership from management.
Okay.
Most owners fall into the management trap and they think it's leadership. So the management trap is that person who is indispensable, that person who has all the answers, that person who is the expert on everything, that person who doesn't let anything go that he or she is not aware of. They got their fingers in everything. Well, you get your business beyond 10 or 15 or 20 people, and you're going to start to work 60, 70 hours a week to get there. And eventually it's going to get away from you and you're going to crash. So the first sign is this. Everybody has to come to you. The world is codependent on you. Managers are codependent on they make codependency. They ensure that people who work for them, not with them, for them in the top-down thing, they ensure that those people never figure out all the things that the manager knows. They simply tell them what to do. And so that creates this ongoing codependency where I don't have a brain. I have to wait until the manager tells me what to do. In fact, if I don't wait, they're going to yell at me. I might even get fired. And so one of the mantras is managers tell, leaders ask. And if you are wondering if you're a leader, just ask yourself, how often do I ask someone, well, what do you think you should do? What do you think the right answer is? Where would you go to find this question if I wasn't here? Who else can help you with this? Did you Google this? It's amazing how we really believe that our job is to be the answer person. And then we're pissed off because nobody else will use their brains.
Yeah.
Well, who created that nightmare? We did.
Yeah. What do we call that? Gatekeeping. Like, I've experienced managers myself. And I think that's what's encouraged me to become, or was, now on my own, but being a leader and not a manager, because I so despise the fact that I had to go to one person to always they always had the information. And I remember feeling so kind of like powerless at that point. Like I couldn't go anywhere, So of course, one of the biggest reasons I'm sure why employees disengage. So how do you fix it? Like, how do you help?
It's a great question. It's a great question because it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if I go to a company where I won't call them leaders, where the managers think people are stupid and lazy, they can send me out onto the floor of and I will see a bunch of stupid and lazy people. Remember, people raise themselves to our lowest expectation of them.
Right. Who really may not be stupid
Exactly.
and lazy, right? Yeah. They're not.
I love that this stuff is not new. In 1960, a guy named Douglas McGregor wrote a book called The Human Side of Enterprise. And in that book, he didn't directly talk about Taylor's stupid and lazy, but he took it on. And his whole book was about what self-fulfilling prophecies. He would go to the leadership. He'd pick two companies in any industry. So two companies in one industry, and he would find one where the leaders believe people are smart and motivated. And he'd find in another company just like them in the same industry where the managers believe everybody's stupid and lazy. And then he would go out onto the floor and check. Sure enough, everybody in the one company were stupid and lazy. Everybody in the other one were smart and motivated. So the answer to your question is, where does this start? It has to start inside my own head. Do I truly believe that people are smart and motivated? Not politically correct believe it.
Yeah.
Not because I know I'm supposed to say that, but do I really trust that people are smart and motivated, and that they can help me, but they can work with me, not for me, to make this an incredible company? So that's where it starts. And then the second place is that it has to work itself out in the way that you change your mindset. You know your mindset has changed, because here's another thing that will be radically different between leaders and managers. This one's a big one, and it's really simple. They're all simple. They're just not hard. They're just not easy to do. Managers tell, leaders ask, managers decide, leaders train. And so here's the training question. Instead of, in fact, I've done this with a company with 300 people in California. The CEO got in front of the entire company one day and said, okay, I thought I was your leader. I'm actually not. It turns out I'm your manager. How do I prove that? Because there's a line out my door with people who need to ask me questions, and I'm indispensable. And a leader will always, 100% of the time, train people to the level where the leader is no longer necessary at that level, and they can go do something else 100% of the time. So leaders work themselves out of jobs. So I'm no longer going to be the answer man, and here's how I'm going to do that. And he took some advice that I got from a book I read called The Turn the Ship Around by David Marquet. He was a Navy captain, and he took the worst rated submarine in the entire U.S. Navy, had been the worst rated for 3 years in a row, and in 1 year he turned it into the best in the entire Navy. And here's the kicker, Lisa. He did it with the same 134 stupid and lazy people that had made it the worst for 3 years straight. He didn't bring in smart and motivated people. They were already there, but they were being treated as stupid and lazy. And he did it this way, and I had the CEO do the same thing. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. Going forward, we're going to do what we call intentional leadership. What does that mean? You are never, ever, not ever again are allowed to come to me. Nobody's ever allowed to come to me and say, what should I do? You will come to me.
The same CEO having.
Yeah, this is the CEO talking to this 300 people. And he says, from now on, you will come to me or anybody else you think might have some way of helping you. And you're going to start your sentence with, I intend to. And then you're going to tell us what you have come up with as your best opportunity to solve this problem before you ever ask me my input. And once you tell me I intend to, I'm still not going to tell you what to do. All I'm going to do is ask you hard questions, because managers tell, leaders ask, and I want to teach you how to figure this out. And I'm going to do that the Socratic method. I'm going to teach you. Have you looked at Google? Have you found this book? Do you know this person? Have you asked somebody else on your team? I'm going to ask you hard questions. Does that work with accounting? Have you thought of what that works for? So I'm going to ask you hard questions until we both agree that your intention, which is probably heavily modified by now, we're going to say, okay, that works for both of us. Great, go do that.
So good. So good. I just love this. I love this conversation. So when you walk in, and I know we talked a little bit of this offline before we jumped in to record, but when you walk in and you have somebody, of course they have to start with an open mind, right? And guess be willing to hear and implement what you're sharing with them, now recognizing what they need to do. Do you find that difficult, or do you find that most CEOs and leaders who have brought you on, who have hired you to come in and help them, are open to that and are willing to do what this gentleman just did, standing in front of his 300 people and saying, here's what's happening?
And it's not difficult because I don't try to persuade people. I simply present, here's an alternate operating system, and here's the metrics that says you will be better by every measure. You'll make more money, you'll grow faster, you'll have higher profits, your people will stay longer, everybody will be having higher. Here's all the metrics if you want to do this. And here's what you'll have to do this. And by the way, you won't have to fire any of your managers. You'll just repurpose them as leaders in very different ways. So I just present the case and they decide whether that's a good idea or not. The guy that I'm talking about that had 300 plus people, he was a top-down, hardcore, rugged individualist, industrialist factory system guy, to the point where when we shared this with some of their teams, one of the guys raised their hand and said, you know what, this is going to be really hard for me because I took my job here specifically for one reason and one reason only, because I knew I would never have to use my brain. I knew that the people above me would simply tell me what to do. I could show up for 8 hours, turn my brain off, and do my programming and leave. And now you're going to make me think.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't fight with anybody. This isn't hard. I just wait for the light to go on. But if people want to give me excuses for why it doesn't work, I've had every excuse, every industry, including government. I can find you some places that are doing this without managers. So I can help you get past all of your doubt that this will work.
That's good. I bet you've experienced all kinds of excuses. So listen, you wrote another powerful book, right? Titled Why Employees Are Always a Bad Idea, which certainly can get people's attention, I'm sure. The title sounds a little provocative, but the real message is about how poorly designed companies create disengaged teams, right?
Yes.
What
Yes.
do most leaders you find misunderstand about employee motivation and engagement?
Well, it's a lot. This can be a short answer to some degree because it's a lot of what we just talked about. They don't know. Most business owners do not know that the way they're running a business is not the way to do a business. It's just they were born, they grew up, they went into a company, and they just assumed that this top-down nonsense with power titles and all this other silly up-down stuff instead of side-to-side stuff. They just don't know that there's any other way to do this. That's the biggest problem. And so in that book, I said, here's the 4 or 5 ways that we actually run companies. All of them are top down with the exception of one. But here's how most people do it. And here's the most common one. It's called the ally method. And allies are kind of like World War II, where Russia, Britain, and England, or Russia, Britain, and the U.S. were allies, and yet there was some real hatred involved. They didn't have to like each other. They just needed to get the job done. The transactional way of doing business. Most companies are just about get the crap done and leave your humanity at home, and they don't realize how much they're missing doing that. So we grow up in that system, Lisa. We don't know any better. That's what that book was really about. It's a manifesto on why this operating system is so bad. And the title was originally Why Managers Are Always a Bad Idea. But people thought that why employees are always a bad idea would sell more copies because there's more employees than there are people. Whatever. But it was also the truth. Yeah. Because employees, the word employee is so warped we can't use it anymore. Yeah. It really has that top-down feel to it. Employee means a child at work. Someone who does not use their brain. They check their brain at the door and they pick it up on the way out. Yep. And that's an employee. They are stupid and lazy just by default of the system. So we use stakeholder, staff member, team member, anything but employee. I'm not against people. I'm against the word employee. Employees are a bad idea. Let's have stakeholders instead who have brains. We don't allow them to change to put their brains in the door. And that's the other thing I address in that book is that when you first start to do this, if you have a company where you have treated people as stupid and lazy, this will be like to begin with, it'll be like pushing water uphill with a rake. You'll wonder why, this can't work. These people do not want to have responsibility. Well, of course they don't. When I first got married, my wife, Diane, picked up my socks. I thought, this is great. I got a maid. And that lasted for like a week. And then she got ticked off and she said, why don't you pick up your socks? I said, well, because you get to them before I do. And so she had to have the discipline to not pick up my socks. And sure enough, I started to use my brain again and do it myself. And so we have to understand that we have to give people grace because we taught them to be stupid and lazy. That's one of the things in that book that the research shows managers actually make people stupid and lazy through the codependency of just tell me what to do. Wow. And then the follow-on book to that is the practical. It's called, I mentioned before, Rehumanizing the Workplace by Giving Everybody Their Brain Back. That's the 12 tools of distributed leadership and distributed decision-making. And that's the how-to actually get to where you're having fun at work because you actually love each other.
So, and I'm going to make sure all of these links are in our show notes. Now,
Thank you.
let's talk about scaling without chaos, right? Your organization, the 3 to 5 Club, and it focuses on helping business owners grow companies that mature in 3 to 5 years. Now, that's a very specific time frame. So, what does that journey look like for a business owner moving from a startup chaos, which we all know that is inevitable, into a sustainable leadership organization?
So when I talk about a first level mature business, it has nothing to do with how big it is. I've seen businesses with 300 people that are in their diapers. And I've seen businesses with 5 people that's fully mature. So what is maturity? Maturity goes back to, well, what's the codependency level on the owner? If the lower that codependency is, the more mature the business is. So when I first did this, I never make things up to sell on the internet. I did it for myself first. I decided I would build a mature business from scratch, from the printing of a business card. And I said within 3 to 5 years, which is where 3 to 5 Club comes from, I will have a business where I'm going to have it's going to be a first level, an early stage mature business. And how I defined that for myself was I would have every Friday and the last week of every month and a month a year. So a day a week a month a year, to get up in the morning and say, what do I do today? Now I might go into work, but I have nothing scheduled. And it's not that I get that time off and the business falls apart without me. No, the business continues on Friday. It's making money on Friday. It's making money the week I'm gone. It's making money the month I'm gone. That's the key difference, because anybody can take a day off and say, well, I have a mature business. No, well, not unless the business is making money without you while you're not there. So that would be the first step that I had to take to figure that out for myself. Was a mature business is, to begin with, getting 1 day a week off. Now I work Tuesdays through Thursdays, 3 days a week, or 3 weeks a month. So I have Mondays and Fridays, and then I have the last week of the month off, and then we have a month where we go goof off somewhere. And again, I'm not a vacation guy. I probably take 4 or 5 weeks of vacation a year tops. The rest of that, I'm free to learn, to do, to ride my bicycle, to cry, to laugh, to read a book and learn more. Freedom is the ability to choose. And most people don't have freedom. They think money makes them free. So they have lots of that, and they bought a boat for somebody else to go out on because they have no freedom.
So tell me who the organization, the 3 to 5 Club, is for. Who's coming to this club?
Yeah, so 3 to 5 Club is for business owners, sometimes rarely business leaders, and it's for smaller businesses specifically. So we have 2 levels of things we do. We have 3 to 5 Club for people who say, 20 or less people in their business who are on the treadmill, who know that the business owns them. They're hostages to their business, and they don't want to go through the pain of figuring that out all by themselves. We can get them there in a year or a year and 3 months. That's what 3 to 5 Club is for. So an example would be 2 lawyers who 18 years, between the 2 of them, they had taken 1 week off each in 18 years. A year and 3 months later, they were now taking 2 weeks off every month, both of them. After 18 years, they got 1 week. Now they get 2 weeks every month. So that's who this is for. Do you want to get off the treadmill? We'll help you with that. And then for larger businesses, there's more dynamics. We got to get the CEO or the leader off the treadmill, but then we also have to work with the organization or they'll get sucked right back in. So that's where the 12 tools of distributed decision making, rehumanizing the workplace by giving everybody their brain back. So the first book was Making Money is Killing Your Business. That was how the CEO or how the business owner can get freedom in their business, not freedom from it. They actually can actually keep their business because they enjoy it. And then Rehumanizing is the book that teaches them how to get the rest of their people to a level of freedom where they're in their highest and best use of their time and talents. So everybody who worked with those lawyers were working 49 hours a week. Is that right? Yeah, 49 hours a week when we started, and when we ended, they were at 38. They had cut an entire day off, and the business had doubled, and people were happier. That's who 3 to 5 Club is for. And then we work 1-to-1 or do business advisory with larger businesses.
Okay. So you've worked with small startups all the way to, and this, this is kind of, it's resonating with me even more deeply just because all three of our kids, our two boys, just started a roofing company. It's just them right now,
Yeah.
other than the subcontractors. And then our daughter and her husband just opened up an EV repair shop, right? Because electric vehicles are taking off and there's not many people who know what to do with them. So they're all just starting. And this is just curious to me that something like this could probably help them
Yeah.
start off on a good foundation, right? Like small startups, companies doing tens of hundreds of millions. You've done it all, Chuck, right?
Yes.
So tell me,
Yeah.
what patterns do you see in these companies that, I don't know, determine whether they succeed or fail long term? Like
Yeah.
what do your
Well,
what's your
the tipping point really is where you figure out that you're a leader. You thought you were a leader, but you were really a manager. And even then, you can get away with it. Jack Welch was not a leader. The guy who ran GE and made it the highest capitalized company in the world. I would steadfastly refuse to call him a leader. How do we know that? Well, one of the ways we know that is because as soon as he left, the thing went to hell in a handbag. Everybody was codependent on Jack to make the decisions. He didn't train anybody. He didn't make himself irrelevant. So we've got to, that's a huge one. Barbara Corcoran, one of the sharks, said to a guy on the Shark Tank once, I love you. I think you're great. And I'm not going to invest in you. And here's why. Because you think you're essential. You think people, this thing can't work without you. And she said, I had that disease, that business disease for many years until I figured out there were actually people out there who are every bit as good as Barbara Corcoran. And it was only until I figured that out and started to hire those people and truly believe that, then my business took off. And so when you get to that place, call me. So that's a real switch. You can get away with being a hostage to your business when there's 5 of you and you're the only guy making the chairs.
Yeah.
But it's going to catch up with you in so many ways. You're going to wear yourself out.
I could see that. And if you could give one piece of advice to the next generation of entrepreneurs building companies today, Chuck, what would it be?
Well, it's going to be something we didn't talk about. And it's the biggest piece of advice I give anybody. What is your lifetime goal? What is your big why in life? That is the first thing, and it's never the first thing, but as soon as you hear this, it should be the next thing that you figure out. What do you want out of life? When you're standing by your coffin listening to your friends, what do you want them to say? When you're looking back on your life, what do you want it to be able to say, this was a good life? What does that mean? Describe it. What does your lifestyle look like? And what did you achieve? Not in terms of, I climbed all the mountains, but how were you impactful in the world around you? What will you leave behind? There's only 2 things we leave behind: memories and relationships. And the memories live inside the relationships. Hey, that Chuck guy, remember that time when, that really helped me, or boy, was that funny, or he. So that would be the thing. What are you doing this for? Your business needs to fit inside your lifetime goals. It needs to be one of the tools you use to build your ideal lifestyle in support of your lifetime goals. And my experience is that 99% of business owners have no idea why they are in business. They think they're in business to make money. And that's why I named the book Making Money is Killing Your Business. Because if you think that's going to motivate you, it's not. You need a much bigger reason to be in business. Figure that out. Mark Twain never said this, but he was attributed this statement, and we can close this out with this. The 2 most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you figure out why.
I love that. Of course, the assumption is you were going to say on the day you die. Always assumption. Yes. Well, so let me ask you this. For leaders listening who feel like they're stuck inside very company they created, what is the first step they should take today to begin reclaiming their time and their freedom?
Yeah. So tool number 1 would be what I just described with that CEO: to stop telling people what to do. Don't gradually do it all at once. Cut the knife, cut the whole thing. Never again. You're going to come to me and say, I intend to. And so I'm going to switch from telling to asking. That's all I'm going to do going forward is I'm going to ask hard questions. You don't get to make a decision in a vacuum. This isn't chaos and anarchy. This is more organized, because now you got 150 or 5,000 people who actually have brains.
And they're using them.
Yeah. And you're using them in community, and you're asking other people, hey, I intend to do this. What do you think? And then I'm going to throw everything I can at helping you get a different perspective so that this actually works, not just for you, but for the whole company. So that would be my first piece of advice. And that will feel like pushing water uphill with a rake. but I guarantee it's worth it.
For just a little bit. Chuck, gosh, this has been such a powerful conversation. Your work challenges a lot of traditional assumptions, unbelievably still around, about leadership management and what it actually means to build a successful company. So for those of you wanting to learn more about Chuck's work, come with me, because you can visit and listen. If I miss anything, Chuck, please share. You can go to cranksetgroup.com, which I would love to hear a little bit about that before we close. And thank you for joining us today. Tell me a little bit about Crankset Group. And of course, all his books are available pretty much anywhere you can find a book, right? Most people go to Amazon, but wherever you can find Chuck on Amazon, and then all his books will be listed.
That's right. And
So
my
tell
newest
me a
book,
little bit about Crankset Group.
very quickly, my newest book that came out this year is called Sell Less, Earn More. And the working principle is serve, don't sell. I challenge you to never sell again. You'll make more money. So that's my newest book. We have an 18-year-long course that we train salespeople and owners on, that we've been using, and we turned that into a book. So the difference, 3 to 5 Club is for the business owner.
Okay.
And for me to help the business owner, and for other people who we have 3 to 5 clubs around the world, and here and there, not a lot of them, we're growing them. And the 3 to 5 Club is for that business owner to help them get off the treadmill. Crankset Group is where we do the business advisory, where I will work one-to-one with a CEO, but they don't have the time or energy or inclination to join a 3 to 5 club. They would like me to work with them individually, and we work with their leadership teams or with teams on the floor. So that's the difference. 3 to 5 Club is for the owner. A Crankset Group is for the owner to get in community. And then Crankset Group is for the business advisory and the one-to-one.
Awesome. And then you can go in and help them and guide them. Chuck, thank you so much. Thank you for the privilege of hearing your wisdom, your insight, years of experience. I am just beyond grateful. And for listeners, thank you for joining us today. We will see you again next week.
Every week we come here and open the drawer. You already know what's inside. You always have. And if this conversation challenged you in a good way, and you think it will help challenge someone else who needs it, send it to them, because that's how we pay it forward together. Subscribe and follow so you never miss what's coming next. And find us at thesockdrawerpodcast.com.